Adam Johnson, the associate editor at Alternet, alternet.org, the website. He tweets at Adam Johnson NYC, and of course at Alternet. Adam, welcome to the program.
Hi, how's it going?
Great.
Nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, great to have you with us. So, a brilliant piece about ISIS's New Year's Eve terror plot story being totally bogus. That was essentially the headline of the article that you wrote for Alternet. Tell us about this.
Well, you know, I deal a lot in what I call the kind of gap between reality and how the media presents things, and I don't think there's not really any greater example of that gap than how we address these alleged ISIS plots. And this one in particular really reeked from the first sort of, it had all the red flags from the beginning. So I just looked into it, drilled down the criminal complaint, and compared it to how the media was covering it, and the media wasn't really covering it accurately. So I just went through the many reasons why that was.
And so list them for us, please.
Well, there's sort of three main things. The first is that a lot of the media was reporting that, and if anyone knows anything about these FBI, I guess, sting operations, some call them entrapments, they follow a very similar pattern. They're very reliant on informants who are paid tens of thousands of dollars by the FBI to kind of nudge the plot along. And I put plot in scare quotes. So this particular plot by a guy by the name of Emmanuel Lutschman, he was a panhandler who had basically no money and had a long history of mental health. And there was 3 informants involved who kind of prodded him along, which is that right there should be a huge red flag that this is not some terrorist mastermind. And then the second thing was the media kept reporting that he had bought the weapons, which is factually inaccurate. The weapons were actually bought by an FBI informant who drove him to Walmart. Allegedly, Mr. Lutschman could not afford the $40 to buy the weapons for his own suicide mission, which that right there alone should raise a lot of.
So the FBI drove him to Walmart and paid for his weapons so that they could arrest him?
Yeah.
Wow.
They paid for them.
Wow,
So,
this is as bad as that Miami thing when George W. Bush was president, where they had literally homeless guys who didn't have shoes, and those guys are serving like 20 years in prison right now for terrorism.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of these cases, and this is one of the worst I've seen. I've probably read through about 25 to 30 of these in the last 2 years, and this one's pretty bad. Even the local media has been very skeptical, and they've done a lot of good work. The Democrat and Chronicle and the local TV station there has poked a lot of holes in it, which almost never happens. So it's an indication that this story is sort of uniquely sleazy on the part of the FBI, and that's good. I think people are getting a little bit more hip to it because we've done this song and dance now for 15 years.
This is really it seems to me like this is a problem of, to borrow the language of the far right, of government overreach or big government. I mean, this has been going on, as you correctly point out, this has been going on for a long time. In fact, I would say it's been going on my whole entire life. There were government informants back in the 60s trying to bring down political activists, anti-war activists, by passing out drugs and then getting them arrested. And I've been there and seen that. And and in fact, John Ehrlichman back in the 60s said that's exactly what we had. The Nixon administration had 2 enemies: black people and hippies, anti-war people. And so by painting black people with heroin and hippies with marijuana and making the laws really draconian, they could go after anybody they wanted. And that was their goal. I know there's been some attempt to rein in the FBI and other law enforcement agencies on these sting operations. Do you know the state of those efforts, or have they been completely lost? I believe the Supreme Court did a decision on this in the last decade or so and ruled in the FBI's favor. Yeah,
here's the thing: is the FBI kind of goes along with the current political mood. And there's obviously a kind of glaring conflict of interest because the FBI works for the same White House that is also pursuing a war overseas. And that war effort is propped up by the spectacle that ISIS is waiting in the tall grass, waiting to pounce on us at all times. And so there's just no incentive for the FBI not to do this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so they have, according to some estimates, about 15,000 informants in the United States, and so they're constantly sort of all working different angles and trying to find different dupes, and eventually they find one, and they kind of come up with a plot for a specific day, and then that makes the headlines, and then no one kind of reads beyond the headlines, and we move on to the next one. But it's I don't know if the frequency is less. I think it's probably greater since the latest war effort against ISIS about a year and a half ago. But yeah, it's.
So this was, in your opinion, this was a totally bogus operation, that this guy actually represented no threat to the United States.
No. Look, sometimes they entrap or sting guys. That you look at it, you look at the affidavit, you go, you know what? Maybe they were right. Maybe this guy had some inclination, or maybe the FBI kind of caught a plot as it was fermenting. But this was basically whole cloth. So the one rub about this story is, and this is where the kind of rubber hits the road, is that this guy allegedly had claimed to the FBI that he had contact with an ISIL recruiter in Syria, or as the affidavit puts it, an overseas individual.
Right.
Now, the FBI never claims in any of the court documents that this person was indeed a.
So do you think that the overseas individual that he thought he was talking to was actually an FBI informant here in the United States?
No. This is not one of the three informants that they disclosed, but this is where it gets naughty, and this is where it gets maybe a little bit meta, which is that, is this person he's talking to a government agent that the FBI didn't disclose, and are they obligated to disclose that?
Right.
And they're not necessarily obligated to disclose that, given certain national security implications.
Amazing.
It's not FBI, but it could be a source for some other government agency.
Yeah. Adam, I got to wrap it up, but people can read all about it over at alternet.org. Thank you, Adam.
You got it.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.